What is community? It's Friday Night Lights with laughter as post-game commentary. It's fun runs, fun rakes. It's passing the boot for local heroes. And it's breaking ground for groundbreaking startups. This is what makes a community. And it's what makes a community bank. It's fertile financial resources turned back into local soil. Here's to people helping others thrive. This is community banking. D.L. Evans Bank, since 1904. Member FDIC.
How does Steven, a CFO, spend his day with SAP Concur? Reviewing spend in real time, guiding smarter decisions with AI, automating approvals and payments, mitigating fraud and risk. Visit concur.com. All spend, one platform.
Welcome to the HCI family of podcasts. We're your source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We share our own original research, explore industry trends, and interview executives and thought leaders from across the globe. Join us for practitioner-oriented content around all things leadership, HR, talent management, organizational development, and change management. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with the HCI family of podcasts. Alaina Love, welcome to the conversation today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you, John.
It is a pleasure to be sitting down with you. You're joining us from North Carolina. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. And today we're going to be talking about your book, Permission to Be You, Discover Your Purpose and Passions to Bring Your Best Self to Everything and Everyone. I love the title. I think authenticity is so important, and it's a word that gets thrown around a lot. And so maybe some people see it as just kind of a buzz term or whatever. But I think there's real power in true authenticity, truly lived. And so I love how your title just lays out really what that means. And it starts with you. It starts with becoming true to yourself so that you can be your best self. And that shows up in your relationships at home, your relationships at work, as you're leading your teams. And it has wide sweeping impacts for your life and how you show up for everybody. So I love that. And we're going to dive in and really explore that more together today. As we get started, I wanted to share Alaina's bio with everybody. Alaina Love is CEO of Purpose Linked Consulting and a sought-after expert who coaches leaders and their teams on defining their purpose and using their passions to build healthy, productive workplaces and flourish in daily life. She is co-author of the best-selling book, The Purpose Linked Organization, and was formerly a research scientist and the executive director of Global Human Resources at Merck Co, Inc. Love is a graduate of the University of Michigan's Change Leadership Program, studied medicine at Tufts University School of Medicine, and holds a degree in medical technology from Monmouth University. Certified as a senior professional in human resources, Love is a member of Marshall Goldsmith 100 Coaches and avid leadership thinker. She has also written for Bloomberg Business Week, the Washington Post, and the Harvard Business Review. There's so much I could highlight about your background, the many accomplishments that you have, but I'm going to pause there. Anything that you would like to share with the audience by way of your background or personal context before we just dive on into the conversation?
Well, just personal context wise, I'd love people to seek me out on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with folks and hear their stories and understand what they're struggling with from a leadership perspective, and together exploring some of those solutions. And with respect to the book, they can learn more about the book and the details in the latest book on permissiontobeYouBook.com, where they'll also find a host of resources that are free, a whole toolkit to support readers that will give them information that will allow them to do some reflective work of their own and some planning work of their own. So there's lots there to be discovered. Thanks for that opportunity.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I really would encourage everyone to check out the book. We're only going to scratch the surface and starting to explore it together today. So check it out. Check out the free resources, all the great stuff that's out there for you. Well, one of the first questions I always love to ask an author is, why this book? Why now? A book is a labor of love. You've authored stuff in the past. You've lived this many times. Anytime you try to get stuff into a new book and try to get that out into the world, there's always fits and starts, and there's always hiccups, and it's a vulnerable act, to share of yourself in such an intimate way to get a book out into the world. So what was it for you, this topic, and why this book? Why now?
Well, it's really interesting. This book called me. I didn't think I was going to be writing the book that I ended up writing, but it called me. I started out, maybe 7 years prior, writing a different book. And then I realized as I was writing it that that wasn't what the book that was needed in the world. And I would have to credit my clients for this book because it was really client after client coming to me and saying what I'm discovering about myself as far as my passions and purpose are concerned, what I'm discovering about the importance of being me is transformational in my entire life. It's not just how I lead, it's how I show up in all of the relationships that matter to me. And they started asking me questions about whether or not I could take the work I was doing inside organizations and do it for their families. Can you do this for my wife? Can you do this for my child who has to make a decision about a major in school? Can you do this for my brother-in-law? I mean, over and over again, I got those kinds of requests. And then I realized that the work that I had been packaging up for the corporate world was wonderful and was having a big impact, but so many people beyond that needed this information. So that's how Permission to Be You came along.
Yeah, well, I love that. Coming from and being informed by your professional work with your clients, and the interactions you have with everyday leaders, I think just makes it all the more relevant and powerful for anyone who picks up the book and is trying to figure out what this can mean for them. And I truly believe that it starts with us. So like if I'm trying to become a better husband or father, or if I'm trying to become a better leader at work, I can pick up a whole slew of different leadership books, right? Or parenting books, or all sorts of different things. And a lot of them are going to have really great frameworks and theory and even practical tips on what I can do to be better, in each of those areas. But until I really fully truly understand myself and why I am the way I am, why I act the way I act, why I think the way I think, and until I have a better grasp of that, and then I have the courage to really kind of show up as myself in my true form, only then can I truly be real and authentic with the people around me, and have meaningful interactions with them. And if I can't do that, it's going to be really hard for others to reciprocate and be genuine and authentic and real back to me. And if they're not being real to me, how am I really going to know them? How am I going to really understand what makes them tick? How am I going to really understand what drives them and like what their core motivators are, and what is most important to them in the here and now? That's going to be really, really tough to do. And any good leader knows those things about their people. And so it starts with you being genuine and real. And then that is so obvious and noticeable to people around you when you're that
Absolutely.
way. And then people feel more comfortable being that way back to you, right?
Oh, I absolutely agree with you on that. What I was learning as I was doing work with leaders and teams all over the world was that the big stumbling block people had for really embodying this notion of authenticity, as you said earlier, we throw that word around a lot now. But the real obstacle to embodying that for people was a language, having a language to describe who they could be at their best and what environments allowed them to thrive. And so, what I've essentially done with this work that I've been doing for the last 20 years is create that language. And I call it the language of the passion archetypes. What are your passions? How do they cause you to show up? And perhaps what's the deeper purpose behind them that's causing you to show up in the world as you are and contributing in your own unique and special way. And so what I did with my research, because I'm a researcher at heart, right? I'm a research nerd at the end of the day, is I identified 10 specific passion archetypes that we all carry within our personalities to greater or lesser degrees. But the trick is to really understand what are your top three passions. If you understand those top three passions, you're likely to understand the strengths you'll show up with because you have those passions, the vulnerabilities you might be more subject to in certain situations because you have those particular passions. And you're also likely to understand what environments you will thrive in. And armed with that knowledge, you can share that. If you're a leader of a team, you can share that with the rest of your team. You can help them understand you, and you can seek to understand them more closely and more intimately. And not only that, you are also in a position to make assignments based on those passions. So you're not only utilizing people for their skill set that they bring to the party, but you're also aligning with those skills, particular passions that they have, and situations that will allow them to have those passions, enjoy a playground to be part of. And that's what makes really highly functional teams, and that's what makes for a happy culture.
Welcome to your Peloton Pilates era. Built on precision, backed by results, and trusted by over 2 million members. Experience instructors with true Pilates expertise, offering classes for every level, from foundational to powerfully challenging. Choose from 10 to 45-minute sessions with little to no equipment, anytime, anywhere. And with the cross-training swivel screen, you can move seamlessly from cardio to mat. Press Pilates, small moves, big impact. Find out more at onepeloton.com/Pilates.
What is community? It's Friday Night Lights with laughter as post-game commentary. It's fun runs, fun rakes. It's passing the boot for local heroes. And it's breaking ground for groundbreaking startups. This is what makes a community. And it's what makes a community bank. It's fertile financial resources turned back into local soil. Here's to people helping others thrive. This is community banking. D.L. Evans Bank, since 1904. Member FDIC.
So it's a really important thing to focus on. The other thing I will say too, John, that I think is getting a lot of attention and frankly is a research thesis of its own, is the world that we live in now and how much of that world is dictating to us what we should be. We have, we live in the world of influencers and social media. And, it used to be that the people we competed with or thought we were competing with were maybe other people we worked with or environments that we were in a professional setting. Now that setting has been open to the entire world, and what is everybody doing, and who do I compare myself with? And it's not just, am I doing what Uncle Harry did, or am I doing what somebody else in my family did professionally, but am I sort of showing up in a positive way compared to all of these other external ideals that we'll never be able to achieve? So I think people struggle a lot with who am I based on what they're seeing out there and finding themselves coming up short compared to other people that seem to be accomplishing greater things than they are. I would posit that one of the most powerful leadership capabilities is the ability to be authentic, because that's what engages hearts and minds. When I believe you as a leader, when I believe who you are, when I believe the words coming out of your mouth, and I believe that you're speaking them with sincerity, I'm much more likely to take you seriously. I'm much more likely to want to follow you and be a part of the dream that you've created for our organization or our particular portion of the organization. So it's really critical to master this.
You just bring up a really, really great point. And for me, I get that, sometimes words get overused, sometimes they get misapplied, and people get frustrated by that. And kind of sometimes people even just tune out because they're like, authenticity again, right? But it comes down to trust, right? It comes down to trust within your relationships. And any leader worth their salt is someone that people trust. They trust you, that you're showing up to be real for them. You trust that I trust that what my leaders say, they actually believe that they're actually going to try to do. And I trust, that I can be genuine with them. I can raise concerns. I can, I have that psychological safety. Like I can be real with people. Like that's a vulnerable place to be. And people don't just do that by default. Like you have to earn that trust. I know many leaders feel like, well, you should just trust me because I'm your leader and I, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. Like people will always be self-protective. Some are more inclined towards kind of just trusting those around them. I tend to be that way myself, and it's sometimes to my detriment, but I want to be generous towards people and I want to trust people. But what I found is most people aren't quite as naturally trusting as I am, and people tend to hold that in reserve a little bit more. And I totally get why, because I've definitely been bit by my proclivity to trust people and to give them the benefit of the doubt. That said, again, being authentic and genuine with folks gives permission to establish relationships of trust with them. It opens that trust door and allows you to like fill, whatever metaphor you want to use. You can fill the relationship bank, with trust and all those different things that we've all heard before. All of it matters. It really does. And relationships are built on trust, and performance is built on relationships. And so if we can't learn to master that, then it's going to be really hard to be an effective leader. I believe that authenticity is a huge leadership superpower. I believe that empathy is also a huge leadership superpower. And you can't really have empathy truly unless you understand yourself and you understand others and you understand where people are coming from. Like that's the whole point of empathy, right? And you can't really have that without authenticity.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things we forget is that we're humans being, which means we are human animals, and we have these deep-seated protective mechanisms that allow us to understand, am I in danger? Is this person a threat? Is this situation a threat? Is what I'm hearing real or not? And one of the best examples of how that shows up is work that I've done over the years with horses, because horses at the end of the day are flight animals. If they're in danger, they will fight if they have to, but their tendency is to run. And you can take someone who thinks they're a very established and capable leader and a very authentic leader, and you can put them in a round pen with a horse. And I can have that horse walk, trot, and canter using no equipment whatsoever, nothing but my energy. What energy am I putting off? Am I sending the horse on a run? Am I sending the horse on a trot or a canter? Or am I inviting that horse to walk over to me and letting my energy down and inviting them in? People do that all the time. And I've put leaders in there and they've tried it. Like, how come the horse isn't listening to me? I said, because you can't get a 1,200-pound animal to do anything it doesn't want to do, and that it's not sure it's reading your energy correctly. So you have to show up authentically and with intention, and that animal will understand you. Well, we're the same way. I mean, how many people listening to your podcast have been in situations where they've listened to a leader say something, and it seemed like the party line response, all the right words were being said, but somehow inside themselves, they didn't feel that they could believe what was being said, or that leader actually believed in what they were saying. That's energy that you're reading all the time. And if you're not authentic, you can't get people to follow you. And in order to be authentic, you have to be vulnerable enough to show who you are and give others permission to do the same. Hence the work of this book. It's about that. And how do you show up authentically? And how do you show up as yourself in a variety of different situations in life? And the book is structured so that I sort of take readers through a variety of pivotal moments that they might experience, and that people that I've worked with and that I feature in this book experienced. It's everything from navigating a crisis to creating a romantic relationship, to becoming a parent, to navigating the learning journey, because we're all students of something, to navigating your career, even to getting through loss and death. All of those experiences bring out us in full view. And if we understand who we are and how our passions help us navigate those moments more effectively, we'll do a better job of it when we're faced with similar situations in the future. And then there are a host of permissions we often need to grant ourselves. Once we understand who we are from a passion perspective, sometimes people still feel stuck. I mean, I think I'm on the path to showing up more authentically as a leader. I think I'm on a path to showing up more authentically in my personal relationships. But I feel like I'm not doing it as fast as I'd like to, or as well as I'd like to. That's the time to really examine where you're stuck and what permission you might need to grant yourself in order to take that first step forward. And sometimes it's permission to be vulnerable. Sometimes it's permission to fail. I might not be so good at this. I haven't had practice with this. Maybe I'll make a mistake. In most cases, I find when you're trying to be authentic and you stumble, you make a mistake, people will forgive you because they know where you're coming from and they know that you're trying. So there's just...
And they know, I mean, we're all imperfect, right? So
Absolutely.
it only erodes trust when you just try to like beat your chest and have the bravado and pretend like everything's fine when it's not. Nobody's stupid. Like, people aren't stupid. They know that things happen. They know that you don't always have everything all figured out. They know that setbacks happen. And yeah, if you own it and you're genuine about it, it actually can be used to build trusting relationships and to build camaraderie and a sense of team. All of that can be be super powerful for an organization. But I've seen so many times where leaders, I just they're so scared of showing a chink in the armor that they end up gaslighting their people or throwing someone else under the bus or whatever. And all that does is it just erodes any trust that you've built with your folks. You think it's maintaining your leadership presence, but it's actually weakening your leadership, stature in the eyes of those around you.
Absolutely, because when you think about it, most people want to co-create solutions, right? They don't want solutions dictated to them. They want to co-create them because they have some personal experience with whatever is going on in the world or whatever is going on in the environment where there might be a problem or a challenge. And they want to bring their perspectives to that and work with the leader to co-create those solutions. I was reminded of this just recently. I was working with a client just last week, and the client was telling me about going for a series of medical tests. And one of the tests that a doctor ordered for him was a test that kind of made no sense. They got an abnormal response to this test, and it was slightly abnormal, but everything else associated with the test was normal. And if the test was going to be significant, these other things had to be abnormal as well in order for somebody to take that test and say, there's a million more things we need to look for. And it was a pretty serious, response. When you looked at Dr. Google, all the news was bad, right? If you have a negative result with this test, it means, you're probably dying of something. And he had a conversation with the specialist that ordered the test, and the specialist said, well, we're going to send you to this other place for a second opinion. And his reaction was, wait a minute, I don't have a first opinion. I'm going for a second one. And when he eventually went back to his main physician, the main physician said, yes, I asked that doctor about this test and what it meant. And the doctor told me he didn't know. And my client said, if he had told me he didn't know what it meant, I would have had far more respect for him and far more trust in him, because together we could have figured out how do we get an answer to this and what's the next step to take. Instead, I felt like I was being, sort of managed through a system, and he was passing me off to somebody else to solve the problem. So again, it was one of those situations where somebody was afraid to not look like they had all the answers. And instead of sharing, I'm not sure about this, but here's what we're going to do to figure it out, they said, I'm going to pass you off to someone else. So would that client of mine ever go back to that physician again? Never, never. And that happens all the time in the work environment when we make decisions or mislead people or pretend that we know when we don't. It erodes the sense of trust and connection that you really need to have to get people to go through the tough times with you. And I don't think it's so easy to gain back when you do that. So it's really important to just be who you are, because as the expression goes, everyone else is taken, and show up with a level of authenticity accompanied by, I think, a healthy dose of vulnerability. Yeah. And those two things in equal measure, I think, have us be our best selves in even the most challenging of situations.
I love it. Alaina, this has just been a fantastic conversation. I know at the time I need to let you go, but before we wrap things up, I wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, remind us again where they can find the book and other resources, and then give us a final word for today.
Sure. You can reach out and find me on LinkedIn. I'd love people to connect with me there. I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook. Some people still use that. And you can also find out about the book at permissiontobeYouBook.com, permissiontobeYouBook.com. And I just invite everybody to take this journey, look at this book as a traveling companion on a journey to better understanding yourself. It's not meant to dictate to you what the answers are for you. It's meant to provide a framework for you to discover those answers for yourself and to have a positive aspect of who you are as a guideline for doing that discovery. So I welcome everybody to read it, enjoy it, put it down, go back to it, work with some of the questions that are at the end of each chapter that are meant to stimulate reflection, and utilize the reader's toolkit online to do additional deep work on yourself. It's one of the greatest gifts you could ever give yourself as a leader.
I love it. Alaina, thank you so much. I encourage again the audience to reach out, get connected, find out more about what Alaina can do for you. Check out the book. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the podcast. We hope you stay healthy and safe, and please join us again soon.